The Green River runs through western Washington without urgency. It bends, it narrows, it keeps its own time. On July 15th, 1982, it carried something it wasn't meant to keep. A body surfaced near Kent, 16 years old, Wendy Lee Coffield. There were no witnesses, no immediate suspects. Just a girl pulled from the water and returned to a system already stretched thin. Within weeks, 4 more bodies were found along the same riverbank. Deborah Lynn Bonner, Marcia Faye Chapman, Opal Charmaine Mills, Cynthia Jean Hines. 5 women, 1 river. By the end of that summer, investigators knew what they were dealing with: a serial killer. What they didn't know was how long he had already been there. This is Unsaid Case Files. This is the story of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. When Wendy Coffield was found, detectives treated the scene cautiously, but not urgently. She had run away before. Her file was thin. The second body changed that. The third confirmed it. The fourth erased all doubt. By August 1982, King County understood something irreversible had begun. The Green River was no longer just a location. It was a pattern. Bodies were discovered nude or partially clothed. Most had been strangled. No weapons, no defensive wounds. Just pressure, control, time. The Green River Task Force was formed. Tips poured in. Panic spread quietly through Seattle and Tacoma. But the killer didn't panic. He adapted. Most victims were last seen along Pacific Highway South, known locally as the SeaTac Strip. It wasn't a neighborhood. It was a corridor. Motels rented by the hour. Truck stops that never slept. Teenagers living night to night. Girls disappearing into traffic. Families reported daughters missing. They were told to wait, to give it time. Time worked against them. The killer understood what others ignored. Some lives were searched for harder than others. The killer didn't rush. He learned. He watched how police responded, how long it took for someone to be reported missing, which disappearances created urgency and which did not. Vulnerability became camouflage, and for years it worked. Gary Leon Ridgway did not resemble the public's idea of a monster. Born February 18th, 1949, in Salt Lake City, Utah, he grew up in Washington State. His childhood was marked by humiliation, control, and confusion, especially involving his mother. He later admitted to violent fantasies involving her. At 16, he stabbed a 6-year-old boy in the woods. The child survived. Ridgway was never seriously punished. He struggled academically. His IQ tested in the low 80s. He graduated high school late. And then he blended in. Ridgway joined the U.S. Navy and served during the Vietnam era aboard a supply ship. He returned home without distinction and without scrutiny. He married, divorced, married again. He worked as a truck painter at the Kenworth factory. Quiet, reliable, invisible. And at night, he hunted. Ridgway didn't abduct. He invited. He offered rides, money, conversation. Sometimes he showed photos of his son. Once alone, he strangled them, usually from behind. No weapons, minimal noise. Strangulation gave him control, silence, time. Afterward, he transported bodies to rivers, forests, and ravines, often returning days or weeks later. Not out of remorse, out of ownership. Ridgway later admitted to returning to dump sites, sometimes to move bodies, sometimes to redress them, sometimes for necrophilia. He said it reduced his need to kill again. He said it lowered his risk of being caught. Control mattered more than violence. By 1983, the Green River Task Force was overwhelmed. Thousands of tips, hundreds of suspects. Ridgway surfaced early. Witnesses placed women in his truck. He was arrested for solicitation. He was questioned repeatedly. In 1984, he passed a polygraph. At the time, that mattered. Ted Bundy, already incarcerated, was consulted. He warned investigators the killer would revisit bodies. He was right. But technology wasn't ready. In 1987, police searched Ridgway's home and workplace. They collected fibers, rope, and DNA. Nothing could be conclusively linked. The science hadn't caught up. Evidence went into storage. Time passed. Victims accumulated. In 1988, Ridgway married Judith Mawson. The killing slowed dramatically. Of the confirmed victims, only 3 occurred after the marriage. Ridgway later said she kept him under control. That statement still unsettles investigators. Years passed. The task force disbanded. Detectives retired. Families waited. The case never closed, but it slept. By 2001, DNA technology advanced enough to reopen the case. Samples from multiple victims matched Gary Ridgway. On November 30th, 2001, police arrested him as he left work. No resistance, no chase, just certainty. Facing the death penalty, Ridgway agreed to cooperate. In exchange for life without parole, he confessed. 48 murders. Then more. He described killings clinically, without apology, without emotion. On November 5th, 2003, he pled guilty to 48 counts of aggravated murder. Not all victims were recovered. Cassie Ann Lee, Kelly K. McGinnis, Patricia Ann Osborne. Others remain unidentified, women known only by first names. They are still missing. Wendy Lee Coffield, Deborah Lynn Bonner, Marcia Faye Chapman, Opal Charmaine Mills, Cynthia Jean Hines, and dozens more. They were not expendable. They were not invisible. They mattered. Gary Ridgway will never leave prison. But the damage he caused extends beyond his sentence. It lives in delays, in dismissals, in the spaces where help arrived too late. This was not just a story about a killer. It was a story about who was allowed to disappear. I'm Johnny Black, and this has been Unsaid Case Files. Thank you all for listening. If you would like to support Unsaid Case Files, please give us a like. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. New episodes weekly. Good night, and stay safe out there. Some cases end in court. Others remain open in memory.